Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of Stash Report from Stash Project. Today is October 26th, 2020. So we have a few kit announcements, a couple other things to discuss, a few kit releases, just a good wholesome show for everybody. We are back, hopefully uninfected from the Halloween Bash model show. I think that's what they're calling it. I don't know. The second annual show of this club in Eastern Pennsylvania. Was held at the America on Wheels Museum in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Saw a few people that we seem to see on the regular basis when we go out to that part of the country. So good seeing George again, seeing Chris over at Diablo's Workshop. Very amusingly, his significant other is actually the person who recognized me, which is kind of funny because I think that's the first time a female persuasion type person has walked up to me and went, "You're that guy from YouTube." So that was kind of cool. That's right, guys. Even the ladies like this show. So, yeah, then a good time had by all, I guess. The vendor area was pretty much, like Hobby Lobby 10 times over. And by that I mean there was one or two people selling sort of kind of vintage kits. One guy who had a traveling kit museum. Always call that the people who are selling, rare kits at like $200-300. They're not actually going to sell those. They just like to travel around and show them to people. Look what I have, and you don't. Neener poo poo. And if somebody's crazy enough or desperate enough to pay one of those prices, then hey, they're probably willing to let it go for that price. But what I mean by sort of Hobby Lobby was a lot of very current, common Revell and Round Two stuff. I literally, because I sold a kit to a friend who was there, I actually put more money back in the bank than I took out of the bank to go to the shop. So I literally spent beyond the $10 it was to get in the dollar to register the Z4. The show itself, as far as the model contest went, had a nice variety of things on the table. We'll just skip how I feel about judging, and just say that it was a nice break to sort of get out. Other than the contest itself, which was in one of the wings of the museum, the entire rest of the show was outside, so masks were required pretty much the whole time. People would take a break here and there, but for the most part, everybody had their masks on. 99.9% of the time. So good to see everybody, is cranky or not cranky or however they may have felt about it, were compliant with what the museum wanted. Everybody behaved themselves, so that was great to see. Nobody was, outraged, vocally yelling and screaming or doing any Karen or Ken stuff there. So that, like I said, very good crowd, very sedate, pretty decent crowd. I mean, it's a small show. So, it's pretty much the crowd that we would get at our show, maybe a little less because, people were still justifiably so a little, hesitant to congregate in large groups. But again, good time just in general, seeing people, in person and being out of doors and and that sort of thing. So, like I said, all good time had. Well, I have to be honest. If I was going to go to a contest again, and that contest and the TAM show down in Virginia were to occupy the same contest, I would go to Virginia only because I'm from there and it would be an opportunity to go to the beach for the weekend, and it's off-season beach, so it's not crowded. But I burnt my vacation time and I didn't have a day off to take because it's a 8-hour drive to Virginia from here, so it was not something I was going to be able to go out and back in the same day. Going to Allentown and back was an 8-hour drive round trip, so you see how that works out. But at any rate, like I said, good time. And like I said, it was a good little show for what it was. We have the kit announcements, or not kit now, but the repop announcements, I guess would be the best way to put it, from Aoshima for December. And they are going to be the Nissan Fairlady Z Aero Custom, the 84 Nissan Skyline 2000 Turbo, the 2016 Toyota Crown police vehicle, the 2011 Subaru Sandbar Fire apparatus, the 1999 FD3S RX-7 Vertex, the 2014 Lamborghini Huracan. I know there's a couple of you guys out there that want the Performante version of that back. This is not it, so sorry. We'll see what January holds. And then a reissue of the 20-inch BBS LMs. Last week we showed you the new hobbies, BMW M8 GTE, sort of production, like presentation assembly. That is now up for pre-orders in Japan, both Hobby Search, Hobby Link Japan, for a December release. As of right now, it does not actually have a release date in Hong Kong, so how realistic that December release is probably not very, but, you know, the new stuff tends to get updated on like about a 30 to 45 day window. So if it is going to come out in December, they probably won't add it until either the very end of this month, or maybe not even until the middle of next month, because right now there are no new kits released past the 15th of November, which of course is, you know, malarkey. They're releasing something pretty much every month or so. So there is that. We have, let's see, what else? Dig into the file system here. There is the Salvino's JR kit for November, which has been announced, and it's going to be the Blue Max Racing, Milwaukee-sponsored Tim Richmond 1983 Pontiac Le Mans, or as we would call it here in the United States, Pontiac Le Mans. So hopefully this one has the meatballs, the little old Milwaukee logos and the circular thing before the wording. I really have to say that if they don't jip up the decals to this, and I don't hear anything ridiculously bad about how the body fits to the old monogram chassis, I would again lean towards possibly actually spending my first money dollars with Salvino's. But so as we talked about, and we'll talk about here in a second because the October kit is out. This is a newly tooled body, obviously glass and stuff like that as well, for fitment on the 1980s era monogram 124 scale chassis that they picked up when they bought all that tooling from Atlantis via Blitz. So there is that. The other thing we're going to talk about here real quick, because it popped up in the comment section of last week's video, is the announcement that Meng made, I guess 2 weeks ago now, about the release of their 112 scale Ford GT40 Mark II 1966 car. This was announced back in 2019. It looked like a small dumpster had sex with a baby fire. Yes, that's right. You heard me. And it will obviously look worse than the Trumpeter kit, which is no small feat in and of itself. Now, it went away. Nobody talked about it for like a year, and all of a sudden they went, hey, by the way, remember that thing? So it looks much better now. They said they, took a year to listen and blah, 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 blah. And so, I guess we'll find out when it comes out how much listening they actually did. There are people that are much more expert in the 1960s Le Mans cars and Ford GTs in general that would know whether or not they're looking at anything that's worth anything that I am. So I'm going to show you just some I guess they're test shots. They look like they're primer sprue shots. And, like I said, it kind of sort of looks like a Le Mans to me. I'm not that big of a Le Mans person, or not a Le Mans, but a GT40 person. I mean, it's a cool car, don't get me wrong about that, but it's just not something that is, I spent my entire life studying this stuff. This kind of sort of looks like it's almost a computer image, but I see seam lines where the two mold halves come together, and I think that's a really crazy thing to put into a digital file. So I'm assuming that this is actually legitimately the car's radiator and control arms and distributor cap and stuff like that, just sort of showing some fine detail. There's this shot here which has the chrome runner, showing that there will be electroplated chrome in the kit, and that's pretty much the three images I've showed to you. We really don't know much about the fact there will be two of them. If you notice, the kit number is RS002. There's supposed to be a pre-painted version of this, or a molded in color version of it, however you want to look at it. And people lost their ever-loving minds about that. And so, much like the 1/9 scale Kawasaki Ninja they did, where there was a sort of pre-painted molded in color version and then a raw version, that I believe that's what they're going to do with this as well. Because this is, like I said, is RS002. So what is RS001? There is no other 1/12 scale automotive kit in their lineup, and this is a new series number for them as far as the RS part. So obviously there's another kit, and that's probably going to be, again, like I said, the pre-painted one. The big thing I've seen with this so far online is the fact, of course, is what the price is going to be. Right now, because it's on sale, Hobby Easy will pre-order this for you for $232. Now, keep in mind, you're probably going to need another $45 to $50 to ship it, if not slightly more than that, mainly because something this big, this size, this heavy, is going to be in a giant box. Obviously, it's 1/12 scale. is going to be too big dimensionally and weight-wise to be considered to be small air packet, which is how like you get decals from Frankie from Hong Kong, or you can usually ship a couple of model kits that way, or you know, some hobby design detail sets and resin, you know, trans kits and stuff like that. Something that's, you know, relatively small. It's usually a 90 centimeter square box that weighs less than 2 kilograms. Usually what you can get out of a small packet. This is going to be way, way bigger than that, obviously. And so it's going to have to come over via EMS. EMS for anything starts at like $37, and it goes up from there based on weight and volume. So at least 50 bucks. At least 50 bucks. We won't know how much it really costs for sure until it comes out and they have an actual concrete weight and dimensions on it. And so, you know that going in, oh, it's $230. That's not too bad. And then, boom, you get punched in the face by a $50 shipping bill. Here in the United States, the MSRP is $449.95. I've talked to a couple different hobby shops, including my local hobby shop, and what they're telling me is that you should look for a shelf price, meaning what it'll actually be on the shelves at, because very few hobby shops that worth their salt sell at MSRP because they'd lose their absolute shirts to the online people, is a price around $337.50. That is very specifically the price I was quoted from my local hobby shop. But somewhere in the neighborhood of like 340 to 360, probably somewhere in there, depending on how much percent off the retail they're willing to give you. You know, it's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but it's also going to be a great big kit. There is PE for this. There are going to be turn metal parts for this. One thing I didn't get from their little picture dump was the fact that their wheels appear to have like little turn metal aluminum valve stems for the wheels and the tires, so that's, you know, a nice little detail part. Men kits tend to be pretty well detailed. Men kits tend to be pretty well done. Men kits tend to, you know, not have too many annoying foibles. I mean, every one of their 124 scale truck kits has some weird littleness about it that kind of takes it from being like, ooh, this would be really, really awesome, to being like, well, it's not too bad. I mean, if you get it at Hong Kong and you only pay $35 for it, it's not too bad. You know, a lot of the most men kits were selling for $65, $70, in which case that was a much bigger problem. But I don't know. 112 scale is not what I wouldn't buy one of these just because of how big it is. I have the 112 scale kit that taught me a Porsche, but I would not, you know, a normal course of business, run out and grab one of those normally. So the 112 scale, or maybe it's, yeah, 112 scale Matra, the Matra Ebro, taught me a little combination they just did. It's sitting robustly at my local hobby shop for over $200. It's something like 180 something at Hobby Ease or at Hobby Link Japan. And so a $232 112 scale kit, if you got it from Hong Kong prior to shipping, is really probably not too bad a price, all things considered. You know, I see a lot of the commentary on Meng's page from cheap Americans, you know, because let's face it, the 66 Ford GT is going to fit into a certain wheelhouse of people, and those people are used to buying model kits for $5 at a model show, or, you know, they're still not over the fact that models don't cost $1 and paint doesn't cost 39 cents. I've seen somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 comments, thereabouts, all complaining that it should have cost less than $200. I would be in for less than $200. Well, guess what? It's not. 112 scale kits are in excess of $500,000 to tool. And depending on how much detail there is, how many parts there are, because remember, your tooling costs money based on how many cavitations the mold has, and every one piece of something is 2 cavitations, the front and the back. You know, you're talking about a large amount of money, obviously, at least $500,000, probably more. There was a comment that Tommy made back in the past that some of the 2000s era 112 scale kits they tooled cost $1 million to tool them. So, you know, I don't know if it's quite that high, but it's certainly not 124 scale tools. So, yeah, it costs what it costs. So, I don't want to hear the whining about the price. I really just don't. It's a big boy kit with a big boy price. So, you know, act accordingly. Act like big boys. Make everybody feel better about themselves if you act like a big boy. So let's go into kit releases this week, shall we? Sure. We do have one kit release here domestically, and it is the October Salvinos kit, and that is this, the Rainier Racing, Cale Yarbrough driven 1983 Pontiac Le Mans. So this kit is out, and as we mentioned just a few seconds ago, this is a brand new tool body from Salvinos JR. It is fitting on probably the Buick Regal Oldsmobile Cutlass, or what is it, a Delta 88, I guess technically, in its 80s format. Chassis, because that would be the smallest of the smallest of the chassis, I think, unless those chassis are universally sized. I think the Thunderbird chassis is different than the Monte Carlo chassis, but I'm not sure that GM chassis is underneath every single thing, because like that mid 80s Regal and Delta 88 seem like shorter cars than the earlier G bodies. But that may just be something that's in my imagination, because I really haven't seen a mid 80s NASCAR kit since, well, I don't know, 20 years ago when I got rid of all my NASCAR stuff. So at any rate, decals will be done by Power Slides, so they're cartograph, and it's another Hardy's car for your collection. There's what, 2 or 3 of these at this point, and for the vintage NASCAR fan, that kit is out and available. So that'll take us overseas to Japan for the rest of this, and there are a couple of Aoshima reissues and a couple of Hasegawa things here. So let's do the Hasegawa things first. You have this kit, which is a reissue of their Toyota 2000 GT in its 1967 Fuji 24-hour race livery. Now, if this will kind of vaguely familiar to you and you collect sort of import race cars, that is because they've done a 24 hours of Fuji 1967 car before. The #1 car that has the red striping package, I guess you would say, to it. Those decals are included in here. What this kit facilitates is when they release that original 24 hours of Fuji race car, probably, I guess, mid-2000s, they released it with the #1 and the #2 livery, but only with one color of stripes. And as it turns out, the #2 car is blue, not red. And so while you could always build the #1 or the #2 cars out of the decal sheet that comes in that kit, you couldn't technically build it in the right color because you only got red stripes. This has a decal sheet with red stripes and blue stripes. The #2 car finished second, so this is the other podium car, and it's just sort of a 15 years in the making correction, I guess you would say, of the Fuji race car, because again, all they had to ever do was put the red stripes or the blue stripes into the other kit, and it would have done this. So I don't know if this now takes the place of the other Fuji 24-hour kit, because now you can build both cars, and both cars have the correct stripes, and all the all of that livery stuff is very minor livery on these cars, obviously, but all that livery stuff has been sort of resolved. So I don't know if this, like I said, takes the place of those kits, or they're really going to sell both at the same time, which is kind of silly. So I'm going to guess that you're probably not going to see that other one come back, which is a shame because it has some really cool box art. But yeah, this builds the second place car correctly for the first time. And other than that, straight reissue, no new parts, just new decals. And then the other Hasegawa kit for this week is this, the Datsun Bluebird 1600 Triple S with chin spoiler. So the Bluebird Triple S is a venerable Hasegawa kit. It was done probably, I think it was done in the late 1990s or possibly the early 2000s. And it's a dual-use tool. There's a civilian kit, obviously, and then the rally kit, which is really, the rally kit came first, and then they made a civilian kit out of it second, and the rally is the 1970 East Africa Safari winning car, which is a big deal because this little dinky Nissan or Datsun showed up and won a prestigious, really, rough Kenyan rally. And what this kit does, specifically this one, is it takes the Watanabes out of the Nissan Sunny, and a new resin spoiler, chin spoiler, which is the part below the bumper there that has sort of like 2 little air intakes that don't really go anywhere, and throws them on there. It gives this car just a little bit of a twisted look to it, in the sense of being a little bit more sporty, a little bit more, modern, current. Is that really what we're looking for there? I think that's the best terminology I'm trying to think of. Otherwise the kit is the exact same kit it's always been. It just has, like I said, a new set of wheels tossed in. I think the factory stock wheels are still in there, and then it has this resin little chin spoiler action here, which has become Hasegawa's little calling card in terms of kits lately. They've thrown these little resin bits and pieces into old kits to make them all new again. So yeah, it seems to be working. Obviously, they wouldn't keep doing it. Over at Aoshima, all of these stuffs are pretty much straight reissues, so we'll plow through them pretty quick. Reissue of the Lamborghini Aventador, as well as the Aventador's detail upset. Normally, you guys know I don't push detail upsets. I always say it's, a decision you have to make, blah, 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 blah. This is the only one I would say you got to buy this, because the Aventador kit itself does a lot of its mesh, or most of its mesh, by having you put decals on clear plastic pieces, and that kind of looks pretty bad. And this is a problem we've also seen with Tamiya repeating with a couple of their kits. The Acura NSX or Honda NSX, the third gen, the new one. The Ford GT has a little bit of that as well. So getting this detail upset fixes all, you get the brake faces, and you get wipers and license plates and lots of little doodads and ding-dongs in there, but you get all of the mesh to replace the goofy clear parts. And then there's also metal transfers and seatbelt material and floor mats, and there's a lot of cool stuff in there just in general. But yeah, you kind of need the PE there, I think, unless you really just don't care. And then we have reissue of the 2003 Toyota Crown. This is technically a 4-1 kit. You can build one. There's one kit will emerge from this box, but out of that box you can build a 2003 Crown Royal, a 2003 Crown Athlete, or 2005 Crown Royal, or 2005 Crown Athlete. Different bumpers, different wheel sets. Body itself, it remains the same through all 4 of those kits. There were 4 kits independently in the past, and now they're all in one box basically. Reissue of the C West Lancer Evo. I kind of wish they would release the other C West Evo, because there's a racing version and a street version. This kind of has cobbled parts from both, but not enough parts to do either. Well, actually, this technically is the racing version, but they don't. There's some of the street parts are in here. They're different hoods, primarily different wheels. I think there's a different rear spoiler, but there's some of those parts are in there, but not all of them. So you can't technically build the street version out of this. But at any rate, it's back out. The reissue of the 1995 YN86 Toyota Hilux New Old School. So it's the old school lowrider look with the 95 and up US parts, which, again, it's just frustrating why they don't just release this with the left-hand drive dashboard in it. Not necessarily in a lowrider format or otherwise, just a bunch of us would like to build a 95 Toyota Hilux, or well, be an SR5 over here. But at any rate, and then last but not least from Aoshima this week, this is one of the few new kits from Aoshima for October, and this is the 2001 Nissan R34 Skyline Mordor 4-door patrol car. Now, we've seen them make police cars out of just about everything that they've done, because, well, Japan doesn't, most European countries don't either, for that matter, but most of Japan does not follow the, hey, it has to be a boring 4-door car like the United States does. And, SUVs really aren't a big thing in Japan. I mean, you have your big full-size, ladder-on-frame SUVs like the Land Crusher and the Mitsubishi Montero and things like that, but most of the SUVs in Japan are cute SUVs, RAV4s, and things of that nature because of, again, size. So what surprised me when I looked at the contents of the box this morning was that all of the police parts in here are new. They didn't recycle a single thing, which is really saying something, because usually whenever these things come out, they throw a set of decals in it, they give you a mask to paint the widow's peak on the hood, and then they're like, hey, have a good time with these 1990s pieces we threw into this other kit. Legitimately, all of these pieces in this kit. Light bar, obviously the bug shield on the hood is a weird thing, because it has to be sized to fit the hood. It couldn't just sort of be a universal thing. It wouldn't fit right, but the front warning lights, the radios on the inside, there's 2 sets of antennas for this. Of course, they're styrene antennas, so your mileage may vary there. You probably want to replace those with guitar wire or something else. But the light bar is new, so it's very interesting to see them actually, like I said, tool brand new police parts into this. The rest of the kit is carryover from the 2018 release of this kit, but all the police parts are there, and it does. Most of the focus on this is a Koshei or prefecture. And there's also decals in here to 2 other prefectures, but the one that this focuses on is still in service in 2020, which is pretty impressive because it's a 19-year-old car at this point. So, yeah, I mean, kit is what the kit is, and it does include window masks and the Widow's Peak mask for the hood. So, beyond that, you're just sort of painting a 2-tone straight down the side of the car, more or less. So that is out there for Japanese police car fans. It's, like I said, I'm a little surprised that I really thought it would be just a regurgitation of old parts into a modern kit and it's not. So yeah, shocked and awed. Not enough to buy because I just don't care, but yeah, it's nice to see them actually tool some new stuff up for it. So that, guys, wraps that up. Hope you guys, if you weren't outside, hopefully trying not to catch COVID, you were having a good time and had a good weekend. And we'll see you guys on the other side.